Hey everyone, welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Adam Vohra, and I'm so grateful to have you here. This podcast is all about exploring the journeys of incredible individuals, people who have faced adversity, found their purpose, and are now making an impact in their communities. But it's also about my journey. Over the years, I've faced my own obstacles, moments of doubt, and struggles with identity. Through it all, I found my purpose in giving back, creating a space where people can detach from the negative emotions and stigmas they may associate with their own stories, just like I did with mine. Here, we have real conversations about growth, resilience, and transformation. Whether you're searching for direction, striving for personal development, or simply looking for a place to feel seen and understood, this is for you. So if these conversations resonate with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on social media. Now let's dive into today's episode. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Finding Purpose podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm your host. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for your continued support. Your listens, reviews, and shares mean the world to me. This podcast is all about shining a light on people who are not only living their purpose, but also impacting their communities in incredible ways. So if you haven't already, make sure to follow, rate, and leave a review to help us keep growing this amazing community. Last week's conversation with Dan Sachowski was one for the books. He's a business coach and podcast host who turned a near-death experience into a mission of service, legacy, and purpose. If you haven't listened yet, go check it out. Today's guest is a definition of reinvention. Tanya Memme is an Emmy-nominated TV host, actress, and lifestyle expert. But before all that, she was crowned Miss World Canada. You might recognize her from A&E's Sell This House or Hallmark Channel's Home and Family. But beyond the screen, Tanya is also a transformational coach, speaker, and advocate, helping others find their truth, reclaim their confidence, and step into their power. This is a story of courage, authenticity, and evolution. Let's dive into this inspiring conversation with Tanya Memme.
Thank you.
Hello, how do you like that?
That was amazing.
You know, I'm so
beautiful.
grateful for you to be here.
I'm glad I can be here.
Short notice, we had a big day yesterday.
We
did.
But it was so amazing. It was great. What a great day yesterday.
Yeah, I got to shout out Brandon and what he does with Warm Heart Life and how he is always bringing amazing people together from all over the country. Mm-hmm. You know, you are LA based. I had to grab you and be like, hey, before you get on that flight, we got to record. And it really was because I was very captivated by what you said on the stage. I was captivated by the way that you carry yourself.
Thank you.
And your message. And you're just an amazing person. And so I was like, all right, like, I'm not letting her get on the flight before she is in studio. So I kind of just want to dive in and start from the beginning.
Sure.
So maybe you could shed a little light. I know you're from Canada, and maybe let's talk about your early days.
Okay, so yeah, I'm from Canada, and I grew up on a sod farm. Remember I said that in the speech yesterday? I don't know if you heard that. And so many people don't know what a sod farm is.
I didn't.
Do you now know, or you still don't know?
A little bit.
Okay. So a sod farm is a farm where you grow grass.
Okay.
And so my father, it was a family business, and I grew up on 400 acres of grass. Like in the middle of nowhere in Ontario, Canada, in a small farming town called Waynfleet.
Okay.
And I loved it. I mean, it was beautiful. I had an amazing childhood. But at the root of it all, I always wanted to be on TV. I don't know why. I wouldn't suggest that anybody should ever want to be on TV. I mean, like, you know, TV, right? So, but at the, back in those days, there was no way to get on television. I mean, we didn't have podcasts. We didn't have our phones. There was no way. So the only way was to get into pageantry. So I waited until I was old enough to try out for the Miss Teen Niagara pageant. So, you have to just get on stage and get in front of people any which way you can. And it's still the same for today if you want to be known or if you want to be recognized, right? Mm-hmm. We just have more avenues now. So that's kind of how it started. That's how I started down the journey of, the pageant world. And do you want to learn about that too?
I would love to, because I think it's a very
I've met a couple women who have participated in competitions in Miss America, Miss Connecticut, and I understand what goes into it. And I think that, obviously a lot of people have that perception of just, oh, they're just beautiful and they go in, and there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. But I kind of want to go back to, you grew up on the South Farm. Did you grow up in a big family? And why do you think that the desire to be on television was so resounding?
So that's very interesting. Very good question, Adam.
Yeah.
So I was raised in an Italian family. My father's from Italy, so an immigrant family. So my grandparents couldn't speak English. They're all from Italy. My aunts, uncles, all off the boat. And I grew up on a sod farm there's 4 houses, and we were all cousins, all related. And then there was like no neighbors for miles. So we had bocce ball courts in between the houses. We had
Love bocce.
Right?
Love
and we all had a
bocce.
garden, the gardens.
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes, a bunch of rabbits would show up and the next day they weren't there, that kind of a thing. The Italian. So yeah, I was very much influenced by the culture, raised Catholic and all of that. So yes, it was a big family. A lot of our relatives also when they came over, they immigrated to Toronto. And so we had tons of relatives in Toronto and then tons in the Niagara region. So I was back and forth from Toronto to Niagara. And then, I think that just in my heart, when I was 11 years old, I remember waking up and going, I love my life here, but I just wanted more. I wanted to experience more out of life. And I thought, so what seems like the most exciting life? Well, it's, being a movie star, being an actress, right? So, which I had no idea what that meant. And so around 11, I just knew that I wanted to be more. And then what happened was when I was 15 years old, I started competing in pageants. I didn't win the Miss Teen Niagara pageant. You know that story, when I was basically laughed off stage, right? And then a few years later, I competed for Miss Niagara. And, I learned my lessons from the past. I really worked hard, and I studied and I worked out, and I, just did the very best I could. And then I won that. And then I won Miss Canada. And I think what happened was, and I look back on my life now, I'm going, why would I ever want to get in the entertainment business? Because it's really difficult. And it's also amazing. Like, there's the highs, the lows are the lows. It's an amazing industry, but it's tough, right? Especially if you're a naive girl from Canada. And so I think what happened is that when I started getting some notoriety in town, I started to get a lot more attention from my family, from my dad and my brothers, and I got more attention from, just friends and family and just the whole city. I was in the newspapers. And so for that, you start to attach your identity to the successes, right? And I started to do that at a very young age. And I thought, well, I can't stop now.
Yeah.
And so then I auditioned for the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City, and I got into that. So I moved to New York, showed up, 26 years old, didn't know a single person in Manhattan. And I went to school there, and I loved it. And I just really, really worked hard to get noticed and to be seen. And then sort of the more I got, and it was a struggle. I mean, I moved 15 times in 10 years because I was subletting because I couldn't afford anything. And I worked every single job that you can imagine. And I auditioned 300 times before I got my first commercial, which was an MCI commercial with Tony Danza. MCI. The company doesn't even exist anymore.
I didn't think so.
It was
That's
an old phone
right?
company. Yeah. Good, you know what that is.
Yeah.
But the company, the commercial was huge. I mean, I was recognized walking down the street. And so you can often get very addicted to the attention. And I know that that's what it was for me. I started to get because in my heart, I love the entertainment. And I love what I do as a TV host. And I love being on camera, but I wouldn't say the business is really totally cut out for me.
Yeah.
I had a lot of lessons I had to learn. I had to, grow some pretty thick skin.
Yeah.
And so, there's a variety of reasons why I decided to step back after a little while. And now I do still host and I still take on jobs, but I do the ones that I'm happy to do.
The line well with.
Yeah, it's not always about the money or about the next job or the next, I have to be on camera. I have a very different relationship with what I do now, a healthier one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you said that is like I became addicted to the attention, and
I did.
it sounds like you came from a traditional family, and it was like, oh wow, this is like a whole different world to me that I'm being exposed to, and wow, I'm also the center of attention. Talk to me a little bit about that journey through the pageantry world, because I alluded to it earlier how a lot of people see it for what's displayed on television and centerfolds and whatnot, but they don't see the actual work that goes beyond the scenes.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of work that goes on beyond the scenes. And, the pageant whole world has changed a lot considerably. And to be honest with you, I think it's a lot more difficult to win now than it ever was. It was difficult then, but it's just the stakes are so much higher. People are just, I don't know, they just study more. They're more talented. There's more, because of social media, there's more exposure. So you get really, really the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I could have won if I was to
Oh,
compete.
you could have won.
Maybe. I don't know. But you have to work really hard. You have to be in great shape. You have to be, all studied up on as many topics as you can. It's very nerve-wracking. And, these girls are young. They're not, they're young. And so some of them are just starting out in life, or they're just getting out of high school, so there's still so much you don't know about life. And you're being asked these questions that maybe a 35 or 40-year-old might be able to answer a lot easier. So they're asking these very advanced questions to these girls. So you really have to have exposure and knowledge and experience. And so, yeah. And now they've opened up the pageant world. I think Miss USA I think all ages now. I'm not sure. Not like all, but I think, they've opened up the whole rules behind who can compete.
A good friend of mine actually last year competed in Miss Connecticut, and I saw all the work that she did behind the scenes when it came to just, diligent with Pilates, but really watching her diet and, getting the actual runway coaching and then the investment that she had to make with dresses. And it's
Huge
also
investment.
it's also not cheap.
It's not cheap.
And, but the dedication, it was almost like she was training for an athletic event.
It's like that. What's the difference between training, like you said, for the Olympics or training for a beauty pageant? You're still training for something to win something.
From that early experience, how did that help to ingrain competition within you and discipline? Because you have to be disciplined to compete in these pageants.
You do. And to be honest with you, I'm not a beauty pageant person at heart.
Yeah.
That wasn't why I got into it. I wanted to get into it for exposure and to eventually get on TV. That's what I wanted.
That was the ultimate goal.
That was it. So I didn't think I was going to win. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I just thought, okay, if I win Miss Niagara, I can be in the newspaper a little bit and maybe, that'll start my journey or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't expecting any of it. So maybe I was pretty disciplined. By the time Miss Canada came around, I was pretty disciplined, but I wasn't disciplined enough to win Miss World. But it wasn't important enough for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah. You had bigger goals. Your goal was to be on TV.
I wanted to go to New York and study and be an actress.
How was that transition moving to New York?
Well, it was huge.
Yeah. You're on a sod farm and now you're moving to New York City. There's no sod in New York City. It's just cement.
There is no sod in New York City. So I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. Yeah. I had a very interesting journey. So the whole Miss Canada thing is very interesting because I ended up giving up my crown 6 months before my reign was over.
Really?
Yes.
The way you said that, my reign was over.
My reign was over because that's what they say, right?
I love that.
Yeah. And there was a gentleman that owned the rights to the Miss Canada pageant, Miss World Canada. I was Miss World, not Miss Canada. Miss World Canada. And so he owned the rights and just didn't like the way that it was all going. And I just wanted to get to New York. But
Trump, was it?
No,
okay,
he used to own Miss USA.
just making sure. I don't know what he's doing.
I don't think he's involved anymore with the pageants. Okay. But anyway, to move on and to have it so that I could get the license taken away from him, I had to give up my crown. So those were the rules. So I said, okay. So I gave up the crown 6 months early and I ended up in New York City. So I didn't get all the money I was supposed to win and all the stuff and all the things. So I ended up in New York and I'm like pinching pennies again.
Yeah.
And I actually would get recognized going, you're Miss Canada. Like I'm working at all these like bars, sweeping the floors and, emptying drinks. And I was like, I was 6 months ago.
Did you have an accent?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had to get rid of that too when I was hosting. They would make me redo takes over and over again because I had a Canadian accent and they would say, you have to read, So I had to Now I think people don't mind so much. The accent thing is kind of, I don't think people mind so much, or
Yeah.
producers, or whenever you're hosting. But yeah, when I first started, when I first started out on hosting, you had to kind of, look a certain way, be a certain way. All of your lines were scripted. You had to stand a certain spot. You had to dress a certain way. Like now I find the business has changed so much because it's so much more about authenticity and who you are. And it's great in so many ways. It's also changed in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you think that caused that shift? I mean, I think also the fact that you could also kind of build your own platform now with social
Yeah.
media, and where it's like, hey, fine, if you don't want me, I will sell my brand to someone else and do it the way that I want. People have a lot more flexibility, where when it comes to creative control, they kind of have to cede it if they really want to keep someone who's talented and that they like. What your early days in the entertainment industry, let's talk about that.
Okay.
What were some rude awakenings or harsh truths that you had to come to terms with as you're trying to navigate this industry early on?
Well, I mean, I was a very young, naive woman in a very tough industry that was often dangled. A lot of carrots were in my dangled.
Yeah.
So, if you know what I mean. All the stories you've heard about Hollywood, I've experienced a lot of it. All the good, all the not so good. And there was a lot of carrot dangling. And it was very tough to navigate my way through all of that. So I lost out on a lot of big jobs because I didn't do what I could have done. I've always kept my integrity. It has definitely, I think, well, I know it's affected my career. I would probably be, I probably would have had a much, much longer career and a bigger career had I had gone down that road. But I just, I mean, there's circumstances that they're jaw dropping what I've experienced,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. And
That's
I mean,
a lot.
obviously we hear a lot of things, I mean, we know what goes on behind the scenes. There's stories come out. But at the end of the day, what do you attribute that to? I mean, like you said, you have that traditional values as coming from an Italian family, Italian immigrant family. Talk about that connection where you were able to really bring that into everything that you did. Like,
yeah. And, sometimes it served me well. And sometimes I definitely paid the price.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents raised me with a lot of integrity, a lot. And it's hard navigating problems and this and that. And sometimes I didn't handle every situation properly. Whether it's managers or agents, there were relationships that I had to go a certain way and it didn't end well. And you know how it is like that. Sometimes with friendships, business, you do the best you can. And I really feel like in my heart, I did the best I could and I did what was right for me. But yeah, it definitely came from my upbringing. But like, I'm one of those people back when I first started, it was more like it's this silent rule that women have their place. And I just dealt with it as a woman.
Well, especially as a good looking woman,
Well, thank you, but-
well, I mean, think about it. You're just Miss Canada, you're a beauty pageant winner. I
was young.
And unfortunately, I mean, Hollywood's for beautiful people, so I get that, where.
Not so much anymore, but I think back in the day.
There's a lot of ugly people in Hollywood now.
No, but everybody has their.
I'm just kidding.
They're all, there's a lot of people that are just their authentic self and they're huge. Like they're really building their own brands. You would never see that before.
Really?
So much.
Yeah. It's so true.
It was so plastic before. You had to be and walk and say and everything. But no, I've been on auditions where I was asked to leave the room and take off my bra and come in with a little tank top and, lift up your skirt a little more and turn around.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's like mild
that's not surprising.
compared to half of the stuff I've been through.
So having, obviously that's kind of the not so great side of Hollywood. What were some of the gifts that your experiences in the TV industry gave you?
Oh, so many. I mean, and those stories all happened too when I was a bit younger.
Yeah.
They become a little more complicated once you reach a certain level of success. So that's still there, but they become much more complicated.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that I worked really, really hard. I auditioned, and every big job I got, I auditioned for it. So I was like the DirectTV spokesperson. I auditioned for that. I actually met somebody at a bar who, it's so funny. It's like, it's so important to like just meet people and talk to people when you don't even know who they are. So I was at the Super Bowl in Miami, and this was years ago. And I met someone at the bar, and he worked for DirectTV. And so I ended up getting a job. I had to audition and like prove myself, but I ended up getting that job for 5 years. I was the spokesperson for DirectTV, and that's how that started. And then I auditioned for Sell This House, and I got on Sell This House. And then I was on Smart Home Nation, and
Sell This House is cool.
Sell This House was cool. It was on forever. It was
Yeah.
on. I didn't know it was going to be on forever.
Yeah.
And so some of the perks is like I have interviewed almost all of the big celebrities back in the day. I've done over 40 infomercials and 30 commercials, and I have met so many different interesting people. I've worked with celebrities. I've been to all the parties. I've interviewed celebrities in the Oscars and the Golden Globes and all of it. And I've been there. I was nominated for an Emmy, so I was a presenter at the Emmys. So I've traveled the world hosting shows. I did a travel show.
Yeah.
And so I've had this big, eclectic, wonderful, amazing life because the entertainment business does give you so many gifts.
Yeah.
And back when I was doing that too, and it was like my height was about 15 years ago, right? When it was like the height. But that was before 2008 when social media started. And like, if you got a show back in the day, you were a household name.
It's true.
Because there were so few channels. And so that was the era that I grew up in, And then when 2008 hit and there was the whole crash, the market crashed, that's when social media started, reality television started. And so that's really what changed the landscape of TV. So
how do you view the evolution of that industry? And do you view it as beneficial, or do you view it as now it's too much?
I mean, I prefer the way that it used to be only because I hit a lot of success then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And also, like, I just finished hosting 2 TV series about 3 years ago, and the whole financial landscape of the entertainment business is very different.
Yeah.
So you have to work. Like, I would make one commercial. So my very first commercial, MCI commercial, I made $130,000 on it. So you work for a day, it goes national, $130,000. Now a commercial like that, they're buyouts all the time. So you get $5,000, it's a buyout. So because the media dollars isn't there per show as much because the eyeballs for everybody are being spread all over everything. Yeah. Like Sell This House used to get over 1 million views. And then when the show came back so many years, we were lucky if we got 50,000 or 80,000 views. So the money's not there like it used to be. So that's definitely changed. People have to wear 10 hats now instead of like even reporters. Reporters have to write their pieces, shoot their pieces, like edit their pieces. It was never like that before. And also when I first started, actors were actors, movie stars were movie stars, TV hosts were TV hosts, sports people were sports people. And now everybody's just doing it all to pay their bills and keep the lifestyle up. So, and also it's not as, it's looked at as, some of the shows that these sports people are hosting, they're great shows and they are doing amazing at it. So, so the job market has shifted too. So it's very different now.
What year did you move to LA?
What year did I move?
Yeah.
I was back and forth from 2000 to 2004.
Between New York and LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I moved there.
So when you finally settled in LA.
Yeah.
That's another big move.
That was huge. I didn't know anybody. Didn't know a soul.
What was that like?
I was excited. I already had a job. I was on a show called Robotica. I did this show with Amit Zappa.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that name in a very long time.
I know, right?
That's
I just
good.
ran into him at a restaurant in the Palisades not too long ago, like before the whole fires happened. But anyway, yeah. So we did a show called Robotica, and so I had this show to move to California for, and we were shooting it quite a bit. So that was nice, moving to a city, having a job like that. So that was fun. And I just built my community again. I've moved to big, huge cities not knowing a soul, and I figure it out.
Nice.
It's fun.
It's funny because I had a guest on this podcast and he was in entertainment for a while, and now he does like a podcast show. But he was in LA for quite a while, and one of the things he said was, LA is not a real place. You know, like when he was on the entertainment side, he's like, you go to like other cities, you go to New York, you go to, he was like, LA and Hollywood is just like not a real place. And he said it in a way, and I get what he means by that, where it's kind of everyone just like, maybe because it's hyper competitive, but also because it's just not for him. He just described it as just like it's not reality, especially when you're in the entertainment space. Having heard you speak last night, you know, it's funny because the authenticity that you just resonated in the words that you shared.
Thank you.
It almost was very like, also like reflective, you know, and I thought it was super powerful. And I kind of want to talk about why you chose the topics that you covered yesterday and why they're powerful to you. Obviously, you talked about the pageantry, and that was tremendous. And then now you're in this new chapter in your life.
Yeah.
And I really want to lean into that because I think that really aligns well with my podcast and purpose.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what direction you're trying to go in now, and we'll start there.
Yeah, I didn't really talk about it in the speech yesterday. Yeah. My second version of that speech, I will. But so I teach authenticity on camera. This is what I'm moving forward to in this next chapter. I've created an online courses called Mastering the Spotlight, Crush It on Camera. So I teach storytelling and authenticity, exactly what you saw me do on stage yesterday. I teach people how to tap into that part of them in video and how to build their dream brand with their authentic self.
Yeah.
And so there's so many layers to it, right? But I didn't talk about it in my speech yesterday because I just wanted to focus on what I was focusing on there. And because I know that we were talking to a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think, I chose that topic because I do teach authenticity. And also, I love storytelling, and I think people, I do know this, is that people learn and remember ideas and concepts through telling stories. So when you tell stories, they'll always remember what the reflection is that you're relating it to. Do you know what I mean? Like the teaching part of it as well. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, in my heart, I've always, every show I've done, I always want to either teach people or help people or mentor people. So even with Sell This House, I helped people sell over 500 houses across America, and these people were in dire straight situations most of the time.
Yeah.
And to see them on the other side of that, just, it just warmed my heart to be able to help them finally get their home sold, you know? And so with authenticity and the courses that I teach, I probably had, I launched the course last year, and it was an online Zoom class, and so it was live. And I probably had about 70 people go through it because I was testing all the material. And when I see somebody thrive on the other side, where it brings them to tears because they finally understand who they are authentically, they're not afraid to be on camera anymore. They're willing to make these videos and post, and whether they want to or not, now they start to like it. And they're starting to build their dream brand because of it. Like, that is what I want to be doing moving forward, is take all the skills I've learned through my life. And I tell all the stories and all this and how I learned all these lessons. And I bring it all into the course, and I've created this beautiful community because of it. So,
when it comes to authenticity, what do you say to someone who would be like, you can't really teach authenticity? Like, you need to just either be authentic or you're trying to be somebody you're not. How do you respond to that?
So it's not either you're authentic or you're not. It's how people perceive you, whether you're being authentic or not. But sometimes people want to be authentic, but they just don't know how, because so many people are trying to be something else on social media, or they see somebody that they want to be like, so then they try to emulate them, not tapping into their own self.
It's just like tapping into your inner authenticity.
Yeah.
And just being comfortable with being vulnerable in front of camera and really connecting with your audience on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do this thing called the 30-day challenge where I have them all in a Facebook group, a private Facebook group. So they post it and no one sees it except for all of us.
It's like a classroom
And
almost.
it's a classroom almost in Facebook. And so they practice posting and they practice doing all the things within Facebook. And it's a 30-day challenge. So every day I tell them to do a different video post. And sometimes, they just get out of bed, their hair's a mess. And like at the end of the 30-day, they don't care what they look like. They don't care. Like they just let it all go. And once you can let it all go, you really start to tap into that authentic side of you. And then they're like, oh, the light bulb goes off.
Yeah.
And I have them talk about topics that are authentic to them. And it's a whole process.
It's so funny because like when I first got into the personal development space like 2 years ago, that was something, Brandon was coaching me and he goes, listen, man, you got to get more comfortable talking to your audience.
Yeah.
You got X amount of followers. These are old people. There are people behind them and you need to talk to them. And I was like, fuck that, Brandon. Like I don't want to get behind a camera. I'm not going to talk to. And, that was actually a huge inspiration behind launching this podcast where I was like, you know what? I'm going to launch a podcast. I'm going to have conversations. And if I say cool things, then I'm going to clip them up and that's me talking to my audience.
Yeah.
And then I kind of fell in love with the podcasting space. For me, one of the most difficult things with being authentic was obviously rooted in fear of what are people going to think? What are people going to say? Who's going to enjoy it? Who's going to comment in it? People from my past, will they say mean things to me? Mm-hmm. Those type of things. And, sometimes I still do have that fear where it's like, all right, like I don't really want to post this, but I should, and it's at the end of the day, those were my initial fears. But once I started doing it, I feel like everything else, you get comfortable. And
you get comfortable. It's practice.
And you also get the I don't really give a shit what other people say or think or feel, because the people who are appreciating it, those are the ones I want to reach anyway. And especially if I am being authentic with what I'm putting out and you're going to judge me on that, then maybe, have at it. Right? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, so many. First of all, through the years, I had to learn to be, for someone who's been on camera for so long, I actually had to learn to be authentic on camera. Because when you think about it, I went from being on camera reading scripts, selling products. I made other people millions of dollars selling their products on camera, right? But when you're doing that type of thing, especially back in the day, it's like a script. You have to stand here, they do your hair, they do your makeup. I didn't even get to choose my clothes. I didn't even get to choose, So it's not authentic at all.
Well, you alluded to that earlier when you were like, hey, like Hollywood back then, it's you got to roll and
you got to fill it.
They told you how they wanted you to look. They told you what they wanted you to say. They told you the image they wanted to detect, and you had to fill it.
Especially as a TV host.
And now.
So there was a shift.
The major shift, and I love that where it's like, all right. I want to just really be my authentic self because that's so much better. And
but it was a hard shift.
Yeah.
Because I used to show up on set, do my thing, and get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So think about it this way. Now the shift is we're all using our phones, we're all this. So what was difficult for me is you mean I have to set up my phone and host a whatever and not get paid for it? What do you mean? And so I had to create this. It was very weird for me. Yeah. It was weird. And so
I love that.
And so I know what people are going through because I went through the whole thing of what's my family going to think? What are my agents going to think if I start doing stuff for free?
Yeah.
Then you get sent free products. And now here I am doing posts. I could never back in the day when I was
would you need to get approvals
and this and that? So
contracts,
it was very
NDAs,
confusing for me.
That, yeah.
And so the adjustment was really hard and harsh, and I felt it. So when people come to my class now and they're like, well, I don't know what people are going to think or say, or what is a lot of people are very worried about what their families are going to think.
Yeah.
And there's shame attached to it and all this stuff, right? So we work through I'm also a somatic coach, life coach. So I've got certified in that. So it's a mind, body, coming from the inside out type of thing, how I get them to the place that they need to be to feel comfortable on camera. But I went through all of that too. Just from being someone on TV who got paid every single time I did something to having to do, because with podcasts too, we have to do everything for free now until somebody notices it and
like, hey, this is
sponsors
great.
it.
Yeah.
That was never like that before. I'm like, what do you mean? So
It's funny
it's a big
because
adjustment.
it's like that sales component to your brand. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I've been doing this for a year now, and I remember speaking to a close friend of me and Claudio's, Dave, who actually referred me to the studio. He's like, bro, like I'm in episode 400. You know, like things started to really kind of move. You know, maybe after year 2, maybe after
Episode 400. Wow.
Yeah, you know. So he's like, what
Awesome.
is it? Episode 400, 200, 4 years, 5 years. So
5
he's in
years,
year
200.
5. So
Okay.
that'd be like 50 episodes times 4. So episode 200ish. Yeah. But like his podcast, the No Snooze podcast, is like now widely followed and people know him for it. But it took him a long time to build that, and I totally understand that. What do you say when you're talking to folks and you're teaching them how to convey themselves authentically, but they're in this social media mindset of instant gratification and instant results?
Right. Well, anybody knows that building a social media following isn't exactly easy.
Yeah.
And that it takes dedication and it takes posting every day and it takes learning. You have to study social media. So I started studying social media because it's a whole thing. And thank goodness we have coaches out there and courses out there, which I'm a big believer in, if it's people that are really authentic and are masters at what they do. Like study the people that have mastered social media because it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I just took this course at Mind Valley and they have a social media summit course, right? And
Mind
it's-
Valley, I think I know that brand. It's
Yeah,
the woman, right?
No,
The
it's
British woman?
No. So Mind Valley, which was founded by Vishen. See, he goes by, I only know him by Vishen, right? But it's an incredible self-improvement company, and I took this like little summit, and it was social media summit, and then they have like this course that you can take. But there's courses like that are specifically for social media where they dive in. Like it is a deep thing that you can learn, just like learning AI, which I also had to learn to start my online courses and everything. So I think it's just really learning what it is you want to master and taking the time to do it. But you have to start first with feeling confident enough to even be in your videos.
One of the things you actually said a second ago, you're like, I'm teaching all these things, but I've done it all myself.
I've done it all myself.
I'd love to dive into that also.
Sure.
Where it's like talking about the journey and the investment that you made in yourself first. What was that like?
You mean when I made the switch from being on TV to like
you're leaving the entertainment industry and now you're like, all right, now I want to build something that is going to help others.
Yeah.
So what was the work that you did on yourself that you now empowers you to help others?
So when I kind of took a step back from the entertainment business, some of it was a step I wanted to take, and some of it was a step I didn't want to take, but I had to. You know, I'm getting older now too, and so it's just, you know, and I have a teenager, so I wanted to spend more time with her as well. I was like, what do I do next? Like, I didn't just know what I wanted to do. And so I hired a coach. And so I had a life coach, and she helped me figure out all the things I loved, all the things I'm passionate about. We figured out what I wanted to do. And it was to build a online course, like online courses, teaching people everything that I've mastered through my years. And so that's how it happened. But how do you do that? Because if anyone has a successful online course business or online classes, you have to know AI. You have to know platforms. You have to know social media. You have to know all of it. So I did a deep dive into AI. I took classes for ChatGPT and Gemini and all the different video AI is another one I use. And there's so many that I use. And how do you use it? How do you take videos and make something else with it? How do you do this? And so I did that. And then I had to get a platform. It was either Kajabi or Go High Level. And Go High Level is, those platforms to build your course on are very complicated. So I took a year and I just deep dove into it without making any money, without getting paid. It's not easy. I had to just scrounge together whatever I had to put into my business. And And yeah, like financially, this whole career, if you're in the entertainment business, you go like this financially, okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm at the point where I'm wanting to build something new. So it's like starting over again. And, but it's starting to really blossom now. I was just asked to go speak at a university where I taught a
Nice.
3-hour workshop for kids all about authenticity in there. It was for a PR course and for a business course. And I just taught them, authentic storytelling. And it was awesome.
What are some things you learned about yourself on your like working with your life coach and in this process?
I learned that if you want to pivot, it was hard for me to make that pivot, to go from people recognizing me on TV to starting something that's so kind of behind the scenes. And I've learned so much about myself also through the fires and things that I'm just a very resilient person.
I don't know why I smiled for that.
It's okay. But I'm just a very resilient person. And I also don't step forward with ego. Like my ego is not, I think I've had it put in check so many times that for me, it's really, I step forward with my heart, and I really do things coming from my heart, especially now that I'm older and I look back on my life and, you change through your life. You become, I think, eventually who you really want to be if you keep challenging yourself and learning from yourself and moving forward. And I think, I just realized how resilient I really am. And I do believe that I can accomplish anything I put my mind to.
I love that. And the resilience and everything. One of the things you just mentioned was the fires. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad because I feel like you have been talking about it a lot, especially over the last couple of days.
It's okay.
But it's a powerful story that I really would love for my audience to hear. If you can just talk about what it was like for you this past year and people you knew and going through it real time, because we see all these things happen in the news.
Yeah. So, I mean, it only happened 3 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's still very fresh, but I mean, you don't really have a choice when something like that happens. You either move forward or you don't. And so you have that choice, I guess. But so about 4 years ago, we bought a house in the Palisades. Now, everybody thinks that everyone in the Palisades has a ton of money, but not everybody does. We had a cute little house. It was built in the 1950s. It's a 2,000 square foot home. We loved our home. We worked really hard to get our home in the Palisades because we wanted my daughter to go to the Palisades High School, which is a really good public high school. And so we had worked really, really hard to finally have what was my dream house. It was our dream house. And, she went to elementary school, and every day we would drive her to the bus stop as a family. We would all get up, and we had our little home, and there was a lot of love in our home. And, January 7th, 2025, we came home after working out at the gym, dropping my daughter off at the bus stop, which was down the street in front of her elementary school. And we'd gone to Equinox, worked out. The gym just opened. We'd been waiting 3 years for this gym to open. Okay, it finally opens. We're like day 3, starting our, getting in shape resolution for the year. And it was like a normal day. And the only thing that was really weird about it is that it was so dry that day, but hot, like hot winds. And they were ferocious winds. And I'll never forget that. I remember when we walked into Equinox when we were outside, my eyes would sting because the wind was so dry and hot. And so then we went back to our house, and my mom was in town visiting from Canada. And so she was in her room listening to YouTube, and, he taking a shower. I'm on a Zoom call by this point. It's 10:30 in the afternoon, 10 o'clock. And about 10:30.
10 o'clock in the morning?
In the morning, I'm sorry, 10 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm on the Zoom call, and I start hearing things outside, like making a lot of noise. And I'm seeing like the pillows on our, lawn furniture outside is like it's blowing. And I think it's going to blow in the pool. And so I'm like, oh my God. And then I could smell the faint smell of smoke. But sometimes you smell that. It could be my neighbor barbecuing. I don't know. I didn't think about it at first. And then because the winds had gotten so bad, and I noticed that my boyfriend, because I moved in with my boyfriend and my daughter, we're all together there, but we he just started pacing back and forth. And so there was this ominous feeling that the energy had shifted in the house. So I was just thinking, I think I need to not be on this call right now. So I slam down my computer and I walk outside. And then you saw the photo that I showed you. I can send the photos for you too if you want to show them. And I see this like big, huge plume of smoke. And I was just, I mean, what do you do? And so OT had just bursted into the bedroom and he's like, take this suitcase and you take this one and this one. We're going to fill them all up with everybody's stuff and then get it in the car. So I just stood there and I was like, I don't know, like, what do you take? I'm from Canada. I just never experienced this before. I've never been through an evacuation. And we didn't really get an evacuation notice. It just said that there's a brush fire in the Palisades in your area, like a vegetation fire. And so it was just, we scrambled trying to throw things in. And finally we just got in the car. And I get in the car and OT took his car. I took mine with my mom and the cat. And we tried to get out of there's one street that goes this way, and then it branches like to a Y. And at the ends of
it's
that,
going like downhill.
yeah, because
Yeah.
we lived a little bit in the mountains area in the Palisades. So there's one street out, and then it Ys. And if you go, that's how you get to the beach.
Yeah.
So whatever way we go, we got to get to the beach. But by the time we got here, and I was trying to go this way or that way, we hit total gridlock, and it was so scary because I couldn't tell where the fires were coming from, but the air was getting thicker and darker and blacker, and there's like stuff floating in the air. The ash and stuff was getting bigger chunks, and people, you just look at the people like it's so shocking because you end up in this situation 30 seconds later, and you're like,
Where is your daughter?
my daughter was at school,
Okay.
so she was at school, and then I got a phone call from my daughter, and she's like, Mom, she says, we're evacuating. And I said, okay, where are you going? She goes, I don't know. And she says, but I lost my phone in the evacuation. And I was like, well, whose phone is this? She says, it's my friend. And I said, you call me every 15 minutes. So now the panic starts in because I was going to go get her at school, but I realized there's no way I'm stuck in there's no possible way. I'm not going anywhere. And so I see cars behind me going in front of me, and I see, the ambulance and the policemen, and there's helicopters and airplanes, and it's just the noise and the fire trucks were trying to go down the street on the other side of the street, but everybody's blocking everything. So no one could go anywhere. It was total chaos. So I try to make a right-hand turn, and it's like just edging. And so I decide to go right because left, it wasn't moving at all. And I go right, and it just got like thicker and thicker and more scared. My daughter's calling, and then I get people from calling all over the world. Friends, family are calling because now it hit the news. And I had to answer every phone call because I was thinking it was my daughter.
Because she didn't
But
have a phone.
I so desperately needed to be talking to other people, not people asking if I'm okay from,
Yeah.
And so like if you ever think your friend is in a catastrophic situation, don't call them. They need the phone to call people to save their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I never thought about
Just
that.
text them. Don't call them. And so every phone call that wasn't my daughter or somebody involved with my direct situation just added more stress and more stress. And so I couldn't figure out which way to go. My car started getting hotter. I started doing U-turns, like just trying to get whichever way was going faster. I didn't think I was going to get out. And I couldn't get a hold of my boyfriend. I don't know where he went. He just like disappeared.
Because he took his car.
Because he took his car. Couldn't find him for a while. But that comes back later. I'll tell you what happened there. And so we're stuck in this fire. And then I look up and I see fire on both sides of my car. We're starting to get hot. We put the air conditioning on. And I said to my mom, I go, Mom, I don't know if we're going to get out of this. Like, I don't know if we're going to get out of this. So moving forward, I said every decision, because she was like saying, don't turn around. Don't do the U-turn. She's like arguing with me, right? So I said,
Like
listen.
a mom does.
Yeah. And I said, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. You tell me what to do. And then I said, look, if one of us makes this out and the other one doesn't, I said, I don't want that person living with so much guilt. So we're going to make decisions together. So that way, if the worst thing happens, we're going to make decisions together. We're not going to feel that guilt. So we decided to do that. And I'm trying to call my daughters, and my daughter's calling me back. She's like, it's chaos over here. I go, where are you being evacuated to? She's like, I still don't know. My friend's mother is here. Can I go with her? And I said, yes. And, but then the school wouldn't let her get out. So I'm trying to call the school. It's like total craziness. So finally, I'm amounting. There's more anxiety and more anxiety. 2 hours has gone by, and the anxiety is like really starting to hit me. And all of a sudden, like everything just went still. I'll never forget this. It was like just went like almost white. Like I just started to get a little dizzy because I couldn't take all the anxiety, I think. I don't know what happened to me. And OT calls me. He's like, where are you? I goes, I'm at the beach. I made it down to the beach. I said, what? And he goes, where are you? I go, I don't know. And I go, I don't know where I am. I don't know. He goes, well, what's the street number? What's the street name? I go, I don't know. And I'm looking at the street sign. Can't read it.
Yeah.
And I was 30 seconds from my house.
You think it was like a panic attack?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And everything just went still. And I couldn't answer. I was just like this. And so he hangs up. And I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And he calls me back a few minutes later. He's like, I know where you are. I found you on the app, Life 360. I found you. Like, I know where you are. And he goes, go straight ahead. And I said, I said, I'm stopped in traffic and we're getting hot. And he says, just go straight ahead and wait for Arno Way. There's a secret street. You're going to go right and you're going to go down there to the beach. And so by this time, I'm 2.5 hours in total panic, not knowing if I'm going to make it out. And then I finally saw Arno Way and I went down and I made it to the beach. And I made it to my friend's house. We stayed with them, and then we had to evacuate that house. So it was like evacuation after evacuation as we would move further out.
Yeah.
But I ended up reunited with my daughter like 2 days later because
2 days later.
2 days later because the city was in total chaos. She was with her dad, so her dad got her. She was safe. But yeah, it was rough. And then and then we found out. I didn't know if my house survived or not for 3 days. That's really tough. All of a sudden, everybody breaks out in all these WhatsApp groups. So there's like the Palisades, the Marquez Knolls, like all the different neighborhoods as well. Houses still standing, houses burnt. And so these teenagers in the first 3 days after the fires, and the houses are still burning, like the ground is still burning as these, there were kids that kind of got up there and were taking video of the houses that were completely demolished and the ones that weren't, just to relieve our
owners,
yeah. And so we were just scouring, everyone is scouring the internet, scouring videos, trying to find out if their house is burned or not. And so that alone is very stressful because you don't know if your house is gone or not. And so many people couldn't make it back to their homes. I know so many people that lost their pets. There's nothing they could do because by the time they left work, you couldn't get in or out of the Palisades. And so many people lost so much. And, but it was the pets. And I started seeing these posts on the Nextdoor app where they were like, if you guys are on this street, please go into my house, break open the front window or the keys under this. And they were basically telling everybody how to break into their house to save their pets. Yeah. And I had seen those posts after I'd already made it to Santa Monica. But I'm telling you, like, if I were to redo that, if I were to go through that again, I would have taken I had about an extra 20 minutes before that. My neighbors' houses were all on fire.
Check on their pets.
And I probably would have gone down my street at least because 2 people died on my street. So it was an older lady who I didn't make it out in time. She probably was sleeping. Like, who knows? It happened early. And another guy was trying to, my one neighbor he took his hose and he was trying to ward off the fires. And he was doing a good job, but he was working hard. And one of my other neighbors they both ran out of water around midnight because the reservoir that feeds the Palisades only had about 1/10 of the water that was supposed to have in it.
Yeah.
So they ran out of water. So the policemen are standing there, the firemen are standing there watching the houses burn with no water.
Yeah.
So it was just like a recipe for disaster with the winds. The winds were jumping houses, jumping streets, like they would cause the embers. And so it was really, 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 really sad. So my daughter's, most of her friends lost everything. Our whole street, I think there was about 50 to 70 homes. They're all gone. And there was only 4 that survived. So my house is one of the 4, but there's so much damage that we're not legally allowed to move back into the house between 1 and 2 years. And all of my neighbors' houses are gone. And so it's really hard when you go back into a disaster area like that and you're driving through and you're watching people go through this emotional process of trying to find, like they're sifting through this toxic stuff just to find anything they possibly can. And, and especially when you know them. So my daughter's dance school burnt down. The whole village pretty much, except for the main little part, didn't. But most of her friends lost their homes. They lost everything. So everybody's scattered.
Yeah.
So she lost her elementary school, her high school half burnt down, and the current school that she's in didn't burn down. They were out of school for like a month, but yeah, so it only happened 3 months ago. Our house is still sitting there as if the day that we left. It's really weird. You walk in, everything's moldy and so much soot and smoke damage. And we basically have to gut the house and,
Yeah.
take everything out, throw everything away and start over again. So, yeah.
Looking back, I mean, you're right. You probably haven't fully processed it because it has only been 3 months. What emotions come to mind now or in this moment, and just thinking about, how close you were to, potentially losing everything, including your life, and just how your life is going to dramatically change.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a lot of grieving. I mean, I did. I grieved, I cried, because we really loved our life in the Palisades. We did, and it's gone, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, my daughter is at an age where I'm never going to be able to drive her to the bus stop as a family ever again. Like, those days are gone because now we're situated an hour away. Everything's different. We're living in, friends of ours let us live in their home. We're renting it from them's, which was nice, but we still have to live kind of far away from her whole life. And it was just, everything was just it was like a little village, a little town. It was a safe haven in LA, which is a scary city sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And
we talked about
the
that
Palisades was very special. Everyone knew each other. There was community events. It was all, and by the time we're sort of through this, my daughter's going to be off to college. So that life that we had where we felt so together as one, it's just taken different form. And so, it's like grieving death because a big part of our life it's very different now. Mm. But I did that, and we grieved together as a family. I don't know if my daughter's completely grieved yet. I think she does in her own way. She has a hard time talking about it. But now look, there's nothing you can do. You can't change the past. So you have a choice to either live in the past and be stuck there, or you look at it as, okay, this is a new chapter, and now I'm moving forward in the new chapter. So I'm taking what we do have, and I talk about in my speeches, I talk about celebrating your wins and learning from the losses, because, you can't fully celebrate a win or, properly if you haven't really felt the depth of those losses and who you are during those times, during the hard times in your business, in your life, and whatever. And so I'm celebrating now in this new chapter the fact that I'm alive, the fact that I got my cat out, I have my pets. A lot of my friends don't have their pets. My mom, we're all safe. I have my family. So let's just start there, And, and so now I'm just really just starting a new chapter and looking at it that way and saying, okay, this must have happened for a reason, and we're just going to keep going. And I mean, I ended up getting like 4 more speaking engagements since this happened. I've been asked on so many podcasts. Yours is one of them because this happened. So there's always like a silver lining that you can focus on. I was on CNN. I
saw that.
Yeah.
Who was it? Aaron Burnett?
Yeah. And it was awesome. And it was just, so there's always, I've had all these new opportunities. I'm asked to be a part of this company. We're selling these beautiful products for women. So I'm developing that now, and I'm a part of that. And so there's also been a lot of opportunities that have happened from it that may not have happened so quickly.
Can I ask you something? And it's kind of like a deep question because you mentioned how it's very similar, like you're grieving. And, I know that process isn't instantaneous. And usually, like, if this was like a year from now that we were telling this story, I'd probably be like, what was the process of healing like for you? But I feel like you're still kind of going through that healing process. So what does it's funny because like when traumatic situations happen to me, I very much related to the grieving process because, usually something's lost permanently. And I have to kind of go through that process, which eventually leads to acceptance. But, the 5 stages where it's like anger, bargaining,
Yeah.
depression. And, you know, I can usually spot myself in which place I am. Usually it starts with the anger, you know, and then imposing my own will and bargaining, and then the depression hits then. And then that's why usually like when things happen, like I kind of like freeze and I'm in shock and I don't know what to do. And I get to like how you described in the car where it's like semi panic mode, semi just like take action mode, survival mode.
Survival mode. I was in survival mode for a long time.
And now, where do you feel like what tools from your past where you had to make transitions are you going to apply to this process as you begin to kind of reshape and rebuild a new life with new memories with your daughter and boyfriend in a new place?
You know, I think that the path that I have taken in life, which was a crazy up and down, you know, I've also had the highest of highs, and I've also experienced the lowest and the lows even before this. So I'm in the acceptance phase right now.
Yeah.
I got through it fairly quickly. I don't know why, but I know I'm in the acceptance phase, but I allowed myself to grieve. You have to allow, and I did go through the anger.
Yeah.
I was very angry and very afraid. I didn't know. I was also experiencing a lot of PTSD. And so I had some friends that are so incredible in the self-help world, like my friend Gloria Chance, Dr. Gloria Chance. She did some hypnotherapy with me. And I did some other forms of therapy just in different ways that has really, really helped me get past this. Because, you know, and especially when you have kids, you have to be strong for them.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I don't want to live in victimhood anymore. I already learned that lesson. I lived in victimhood for other reasons in my career and my life, and, you know, and I'm just not that person anymore. So when adversity happens, I know how to deal with it now. And you have the choice to, you know, allow yourself to grieve, and then you have to move on, and you have to be strong. And I want to be strong for my friends that did lose everything, and for my friends that are having a harder time being strong. And so like next week, I'm taking one of my friend's daughters with my daughter to Palm Springs just to have her, because she lost everything. And yeah, I mean, we're just going to spend some time together and talk and be, and just help them through that process. But yeah, it's you chip away at it every day. But I think the skills that I learned from being in the entertainment business and experiencing so many highs and so many lows in my life, it's definitely been an adventure that I was just able to sort of, you know, I'm in an okay place now.
One of the most powerful things you said is about victimhood. And I love that because I think there's like so many times that people automatically start feeling bad for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And from a really micro version where you're in traffic and someone cuts you off and you're like, fuck you. Like, why would you cut me off? Like, yes. And from a macro version where it's like, holy God, like, you know, why did this happen to me? I like how you're looking at it from a place of acceptance where maybe this is an opportunity, and you pointed out the opportunities that have come your way.
There's a lot we don't understand in life.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I want to pivot and talk a little bit about purpose, obviously.
Sure.
We have a big finding purpose behind me. We got to talk about that. And do you feel like you're living in your purpose now?
I do. I do. It's interesting because I also felt like I was living in my purpose too when I was at the height of my career, but I don't know if I was living my true authentic self. But I was living my purpose because the shows that I was doing was helping people. And now I'm creating a whole new business. I'm an entrepreneur. So, you know, financially you go through the ups and downs and the struggles when you're so used to making a certain amount of money doing something else, and then you have to give it all up and start over again. But within all of that, I am so much more on purpose now because I still host. I still do things. Like I still get hired to do things here and there, and I love it. But how I'm living my life and how I walk forward, it's definitely not all about my career and everything. It's about who I am and who I'm bringing into the table, whether it's in a relationship, bringing to the table, whether it's a relationship or it's my career or it's my entrepreneurial skills or whatever it is. I'm walking forth as the most true, authentic person that I know I've ever been. Because all the ego's been all the ego's been ripped away through it all, right? So I don't walk forward with ego anymore. Do you know what I mean by that?
I totally know what you mean. And, I can relate that to my own journey where when I led with ego in the past,
Yes.
it was often self-destructive and
Yeah.
very much didn't attract the energy that I wanted to or the people that I wanted to. And it's very hard to walk with ego and then also convey authenticity.
Totally. You can't.
It's impossible.
You can't.
And for me, ego is kryptonite for me because when I lead with ego, then I think I'm invincible. And being a man in recovery, ego is very toxic for me because when I lead with ego, then I think, my Lord, even another drink can't bring me down, and time after time after time, when I led with ego, led to relapse, led to a whirlwind of just poor decisions and consequences. So I understand that leading with humility has gotten me to a place where I can be my authentic self and continue to grow and work on myself.
You nailed it.
Because if you already think that you're the best, then how are you going to find areas to improve? Right?
Right.
Yeah. So
you don't.
I love how you've intertwined ego and at the end of the day, we both have humbling moments where it's like, boom, my ego was put into check.
Yes,
but there are many points in my life where my ego should have been put in check.
Yeah.
But I was like, fuck that. Or it's like
ego is also healthy too to have. Like, you know what I mean? There's a healthy,
absolutely.
You have to have that to have confidence and to believe in yourself, you know? But it's a healthy relationship. And sometimes it takes losing everything to really break that ego down and step into who you authentically
takes a rock
are
bottom
and
sometimes.
lead with love.
Absolutely.
I lead with love now. I love meeting new people. I love the fact that you asked me to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
I love connection. I love, whereas I think before I was a little bit more, I was a lot more distant, a lot more in my own little world and so concentrated on making money. It's not all about making money for me anymore. It's about living my authentic life, being true to who I am. And I'm so happy when I have a relationship with somebody, when I have friends, my community, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Same with me. I think connection is the ultimate adrenaline rush for me, a true connection and a true conversation. I get so much more out of that than I think I said that I don't know if it was you, but I said that to someone yesterday. I think
you said it to me yesterday. Yeah, we talked about it.
And I was like, I like these networking events, but am I going to have authentic conversations with everyone? No. Some, yes, but they're going to be 10-minute conversations or 5-minute conversations, really. And I've said this multiple times on this podcast where when I go to network events, I'm like, hey, listen, I like your energy and here's my link and let's do a one-on-one because that's where we can get we both can give each other that undivided attention. And really be present in the conversations. So what does the word purpose mean to you?
So to me, purpose lives in here. You feel your purpose. And when this part of you gets that warm, fuzzy, light, connected feeling, do you know what I mean? When it's lit up, you're doing something that's in line with your purpose.
It's lit up right now for me.
Mine is too. Yeah. Mine is too. You feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You feel inside when you're living your purpose. That light that goes off, they're like, yeah, this feels right. And really tuning into that part of you takes time to really hone that skill to be able to know when you're making a decision on purpose, you're having a relationship on purpose, you're living your life on purpose. But when you listen to that, I talked about it in the speech yesterday, when you listen to that part of you, that seed inside that knows who you truly are through the losses and through all the hardships and adversity, and then it also knows the side of you that's able to win and celebrate because it knows who you are. It's like holding on to that part of you and knowing when it's lit up. I feel like you're living on purpose.
One of the things that you said, and it's something that I use, I don't say it as eloquently as you, but it's a gut check. And, for me, so many times in the past, I ignored my gut.
Me too. Totally. It's always gotten me in trouble.
Always. And, when you talk about the gut check, really, we're talking about red flags.
Yes.
They're there for a reason. They're red for a reason. And, for a lot of times, when it came to people I should associate myself with or places I should go or just decisions that I made, dude, you knew better.
Totally.
You knew better.
Totally.
But it was like that ego. It's like, no, it's not going to play out that way. No, I'll be able to make sure they don't do that.
Right.
And it's like, no, I'm not that powerful. I can only control the decisions that I make.
I can't tell you how many business contracts I got into through the years, and I lost so much money because I trusted somebody. But my gut said don't.
Don't. Yeah.
Like so many. I lost so much money learning the hard way.
Yeah.
And making the wrong business deals with the wrong people. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also made the right ones eventually, but not as many. I made probably more wrong ones than.
But had you followed your gut, you know.
Oh, it would have been a totally different situation.
Exactly. But that's what we learn now. And, you know, I have a couple more questions. I usually call it the rapid fire questions, but they never really are. But I'll start with the first one. What are daily habits that you incorporate to live purposefully?
Daily habits is I really try to live without judgment. Like every day I try to wake up and not. So even if I'm driving a car and like people get so caught up in like getting mad at the person that honked their horn or whatever, or that like what's it called? Traffic rage, road rage. I'm always thinking that other person has to get somewhere and they cut me off for a reason. So I'm always, I try to live my life every morning from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. I really work hard on not judging others. And it gives me a lot more peace.
I love that.
Okay.
I love that. I love that. What advice would you give to somebody on that journey of finding purpose?
I would just say, like, when you're on the journey of finding your purpose, a lot of it is deep diving into really discovering who you truly are. And it's not an easy road. Finding your purpose, there's like I always say, like you're going to hit some lows and you're going to hit some highs, but that's all a part. I believe that life goes full circle. And so all the things that you're going through now and you're learning and you're figuring out and you're going through the ups and the downs and none of it makes sense. And you're doing 10 different jobs. You started 10 different careers. I'm telling you, it will all come full circle. Just keep moving forward and it will make sense.
I love that. That's a real right there.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my path went like this.
You got that CV.
Right?
Yeah.
My path went like this and then like this and then like that.
Yeah.
My path went all over the place and it came full circle. It always does.
I love that. I'm so grateful that you joined me this beautiful rainy Sunday morning here in Connecticut.
I love it.
And hopeful to continue and build on this relationship.
Yes, I would love that.
I do host events, so hopefully one day I can have you MC one of them. I don't know if I can afford you yet, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
But I'd love for you to talk to my audience, tell them what you got coming up next, how they could reach you, and whatever else you'd like to share.
Yeah, so really just follow me on my social media at Tanya Memme Official. So that's Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Not so much on TikTok. I got to work that one a little more. And YouTube. My YouTube just recently got hacked. So but I would love for you to follow me on YouTube because I'm going to be rebuilding it. I got it back again. I got the channel back again like a few weeks ago. And so follow me there. And yeah, and what do I have going on? I have my courses and my classes and my workshops. And I also teach, confidence on camera, in life, on stage, becoming your authentic self. And I'm really proud of the community that I'm creating. So I'd love for you to be a part of it.
Tanya, thank you so much for joining me, and special shout out to Kai Visions, Claudio Valenzuela, not Venezuela, for just opening up the studio today on a Sunday morning. And, anybody ever wants to work with him, reach out to me. I'll connect you with Claudio because he just does exceptional work here in Stamford, Connecticut. And I really hope everyone enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't yet, and it's, we're in the mid 50s when it comes to episodes, and you haven't subscribed and you haven't liked and you haven't left a review, I urge you to, because it's really important for us to build this community of like-minded folks that live purposefully and want to share a message that enables others to also find their purpose and continue to help and continue to grow. So super grateful, and we'll catch you next time.